But first, today something became clearer to me about Anthony Albanese, the Labor leader. And it might actually be good news to everyone if he does win on Saturday, although new polls suggest he might be in for a heartbreak. You see, a lot of people are rightly worried that Albanese is not ready to be Prime Minister on Saturday. He's not on top of economics, he's not on top of the detail of his own policies. He doesn't even look like a leader. Plus, as I've said before, I think he's too sentimental, he's too emotional. I'm worried that he's going to find it very hard to say no and will be ruled too much by his heart instead of his head. No discipline. So it's not surprising to see polls now, two, one last night, another today, apparently showing voters having second thoughts about voting for Albanese. His huge polling lead is now almost gone. Last night I told you about the poll in the 9 newspapers saying that Labor's lead had been slashed to the bare minimum, 51% to 49%. Today, a similar result in the Essential poll. Labor just 2 points ahead of the coalition after preferences, with 7% of voters still undecided. So suddenly, if these polls are to be believed, and all the ones claiming a runaway victory for Labor are wrong, anyone could win. Although most likely, I think, is still the worst of all possible worlds, an unstable Labor government, a minority one, that relies on the votes of the Greens and climate independence. So it'll be like the Gillard government, but more extreme. And yet, you know, looking at the obvious weaknesses of Albanese and Labor, seeing yesterday, for instance, Albanese yesterday embarrassing himself by fleeing a press conference rather than admit that Labor will blow out our budgets with even more debt, I wonder how even these latest polls still have Labor just ahead. Although today, and this is what became a little clearer, I have to admit that Albanese underlined just why many voters still do think they prefer him as Prime Minister. And it's not just because today's wages figures were not good. Wages under the last year of the Morrison government grew just 2.4%, which is less than half as much as prices, leaving the Prime Minister today claiming, look, you know, real wages will go up next year. And by the way, it's going to be worse under Labor.
It'll take even longer if you have policies, as the Labor Party propose.
Well, that's one thing. But today, even for Conservatives, Albanese gave some reason, I think, to believe that he might actually lead a decent government, even if it's completely hopeless. Albanese might stuff up the economy. He's certainly going to make our race division worse with his plans for apartheid, and it's going to be an expensive failure on global warming. It'll also be a pushover, and the unions are coming back, you watch. But credit where it's due. If he is true to his word, I can see Albanese growing into a gritty, decent, low-key, but authentically Labor Prime Minister, not some megalomaniac or whatever like, I don't know, Kevin Rudd. And that is what became clearer to me with Albanese's speech today at the National Press Club, which I thought was the best he's given, at least of the ones I've heard, for all its scary flaws. For one, he made his modest but sincere pitch, seems sincere to me, that perfectly contrasted what he wants to be with what many critics think the Morrison government is.
This is the Labor government that I want to lead. This is the positive campaign that I have run, not to occupy the space to change the country for the better. Honest, real, focused on the lives and values of the Australian people. That's how I started, that's how I intend to finish. Focusing on solutions, not arguments. Taking responsibility, treating people with respect.
Well, I'm not quite sure that a campaign that spent so much effort in smearing Morrison is that positive, but still, I do think pitch plays. And I reckon Albanese's advisors have told him to show more passion, you've just seen, to seem authentic. And look, maybe at times he overdid it today, but still, here he is attacking the Liberals' plan to save money by slashing the public service.
It doesn't save money, it costs money, because you take humans out of human services and it has devastating consequences for real people. It cost lives. Lives.
I kind of think that battler thing is working for him, and hats off, I think, on that point. Now, mind you, as I said, Albanese, I think, is too soft. Is he seriously saying, for instance, that we shouldn't trim the public service? That's a warning right there. But again, I guess it comes down to who you really want as a Prime Minister. A bloke who seems decent, but could be very bad at running an economy. Or a bloke who seems to be, sneering, but is a safer pair of hands. Are we into the seeming or the doing? What counts? And for those of us who judge by doing, there were a lot of red flags in Albanese's speech today. I mean, what's going to be his wages policy, his productivity policy? Well, he said he's going to call a summit, unions, bosses, to work out what to do. So what policy are we actually voting for now, on Saturday? Or what about a basic question, like what about lockdowns with more than 40 Australians a day still dying of COVID? And again, even there, it's something Albanese is going to get someone else to tell him after the election.
Still a major issue, and I have raised as one of the things that I would be seeking to do very early on, as in next week. I have asked, as part of incoming briefs, that there be exactly that, a national strategy.
So again, what are we voting for here? So Albanese doesn't quite understand his own plans and still hasn't worked out what he'd actually do. But at least is determined to be nice. And for some people, that seems to be enough. I just wonder if they figured out what that could end up costing.